Hi, this is Lindsay, the Crafty Blonde, and today I'm showing you a quick 5 cards, 1 pad using this beautiful Simply Creative 6x6 paper pad called Out of the Blue from Trimcraft. So for my first card, I've taken the mosaic style paper and I'm going to cut it into 4 sections, and each section has got 4 squares within the section. I'm then taking a corner rounder and just rounding the corners on one edge of each of the squares. Next I've got some blue card and I'm cutting some 5.5cm squares, which are just slightly larger than the paper. And then again I'm taking the corner rounder onto these and just rounding one corner on each square. Then I've got my 6x6 card blank and I'm just sort of popping those on there, and you'll notice that the corners, the rounded corners, are going on the outside edges. So I'm just adding a little bit of glue on there and then just placing them where I want them. Then I've taken a piece of white card and I'm cutting that to 6x6 square, rounding all the corners on that. And then I'm taking the Dovecraft You Don't Get Older, You Get Lovelier stamp, and I'm just stamping that on the centre of the panel. And then I've taken some blue card and that is cut to 6.5 by 6.5, and again I'm rounding each corner on that, and I'm going to layer the stamped panel onto the blue card. And then what I'm doing here is I'm working out where the middle of my card is. So I'm sort of just drawing a faint cross in the middle of the card, approximately 7.5cm, and then I'm just adding a bit of double-sided tape onto the back of each panel, and then I'm just placing those onto the card. And you'll notice the way I'm placing them, I've done the squares so they've got one blue, one white, one blue, one white, etc. So here I'm just taking a rubber and just rubbing that cross out of the middle of the card, and then I've got the sentiment panel. I've just added a few foam pads onto the back of that and stuck that onto the top in the centre of the card. I've then got a couple of small butterfly dies and I'm just running those through my machine with the blue card. And then I'm just going to place those onto the front, just around the sentiment, with a bit of Dovecraft clear acrylic glue, just popping those there just to give a little bit of decoration. And then just to finish, I've taken some clear gems and I'm just adding those to the centre of the butterfly bodies. And there's my first card. So for my second card, I've taken a piece of the dark blue floral paper and I'm cutting that so it is 10.5cm wide by 12cm tall, and then I'm taking a piece of black card and I'm cutting that so it's 11cm by 12.5cm, and then I'm matting the paper onto the black card. I've then taken my die cutting machine and I'm cutting out the sentiment that says hello in a speech bubble and a butterfly, and what I'm going to do is just take the hello from out of the speech bubble so that I've just got the word left. I've then taken the die cutting machine again and I've got a little tag shape which I've cut out of white card, and then what I'm going to do is mat that onto a little piece of black card just to give me an edge on the one side. and then I'm going to take the hello and I'm just going to add that onto my little tag. Just deciding where I want to position it there, adding a couple of foam pads on the back and popping that onto the panel. I've then taken a 6x6 card blank, and with the fold at the top I've trimmed it so it is 12 centimetres wide. And then I'm just adding a bit of glue on the back of the panel and sticking that onto the front of the card. I've then taken the die cut butterfly, added that to the card just above the sentiment, and then I'm just finishing off with a few gems scattered around just to give it a bit of decoration. And there's my second card. So for my third card, I've taken a piece of white card and I'm cutting that to 9.5 centimetres by 15 centimetres. And then what I'm going to do is take that through my die cutting machine, and out of the centre of the panel of the card, I'm going to die cut 3 butterflies. I've then taken some scraps of blue card, and using a scalloped rectangular die, I'm going to cut sort of a section out of each card so that one edge has got a scalloped side to it. I've noticed I've got a couple of marks on the panel from my big shot plate, so I was just rubbing those off. I've then got a Dovecraft sentiment stamp that says thanks, so I'm just inking that up in VersaFine ink and I'm stamping that in the bottom right hand corner. Then what I've done, I've taken those sort of little scalloped panels, you can see they've just got the scallop on one edge, and I'm just adding tape to either side on the back of the white panel, and then I'm just going to line those up and stick that so I've got a little scalloped edge on each side of my central panel. Then just taking the scissors there and trimming that off on the end, just so it's all nice and neat and level. So then I've taken a piece of blue floral paper and I'm cutting that so it is 11.5 wide by 15 tall, and then I've got a 6x6 card blank, leaving the fold at the top. I've cut that to 12 centimetres wide, added the blue paper onto the front of that, and then I've just got my die cut panel. I'm covering the back of that with some foam tapes just to give it a bit of height and dimension, and then I'm popping that onto the front of my card blank as centrally as I can, so I've got a bit of paper popping out from either side. And then I'm just taking a couple of gems and I'm just adding those on randomly. Then what I decided I wanted to do was add some smaller butterflies into the die cut sections. So I've just run those through my die cutting machine, and then in the centre of each butterfly I'm going to just add one of these little white butterflies with the wings sticking up, again just to give it a bit of dimension really. And there's my third card. So for my fourth card, I've taken a piece of dark blue card and leaving the width, which is 21 centimetres, I've cut that so it is 15 centimetres wide, and then what I've done is turned it around, scored it in half at 10.5 centimetres, so it gives me a card blank that is 15 by 10.5. I've then taken some blue and white floral paper and I'm cutting that so it's 9.5 centimetres tall by 14 centimetres wide. Then I'm taking a border die, running that through my cutting machine on blue card, so I've got a nice little decorative border, and realised that it wasn't quite wide enough for my card, so what I've done is cut it in half and that join will be covered. So I've just added the paper onto the front of the card, and then with a bit of tape I'm just going to stick the border onto the card, sort of towards the bottom third of the card. So I'm just playing about with it there, deciding where I wanted it. Then I've taken another piece of paper from the pad, and it's like a dark blue with some white stripes, and I've cut that so it's just 1 centimetre wide, and that's just perfect to fit across my border and have a nice little scalloped edge across the top and the bottom. So I'm just popping that across there, trimming to fit. Then I've taken some sentiment stamps. This is Dovecraft Couture du Jour, and it's got a couple of nice sentiments in there. So I've taken the happy birthday one, and I'm stamping that up using VersaFine ink. Then I've got a couple of butterflies and sort of a really fancy flourish, which I'm running through the machine on white card, and I'm cutting 2 out of each lot, and just very carefully trying to remove that from the card there, trying not to rip any of the delicate edges. And now I'm just very carefully cutting that sentiment out. And then playing with the flourishes, trying to decide where I want them on the card, as I want them behind my sentiment to frame the sentiment. So once I've decided where I wanted those, I've popped them onto the card, just attached them just in the middle with a bit of tape, and then obviously the sentiment will go over the top of that with some foam pads, so that will cover that tape and you won't see where it is. And then I'm just going to take the butterflies and add those randomly across the front of the card. Then unfortunately my camera decided to cut out here and before I could finish the card. So for my third card, I've taken 2 square dies. The largest one is approximately 11.5 centimetres and the smallest 9 centimetres, and I've used those to create a frame. I've then taken a trellis die and I've run that through my machine as well. I've then got a 6x6 card blank, and I'm trimming a piece of dark blue paper to 11 centimetres by 11 centimetres, and I'm just adding that to the centre of the card blank. Then I've got the frame and the trellis background. I'm just adding a bit of tape around the edge of the frame, and then I'm just going to pop the trellis pattern into the section, so I've got my my aperture covered. Just lining it up there. Then to give it a bit of dimension, I'm just adding a layer of foam pads all the way around the frame. And then I'm going to pop that onto the centre of my card so it covers the paper. So then I've got some green card and I'm just running a selection of leaves through my die cutter. I think I've done 2 of each there, and then I've got some white card and I'm running a selection of flowers and a couple of butterflies, and again I'm going to run those through and I'm going to cut 2 lots out of each. Just carefully removing those there from the card. Then on the back of the large daisy, it's got like little holes in it, but I wanted them to still be within the flower. So before I've taken it out of the die, I've just added some double-sided tape to the back of it, so that when I do pull the die cut out, I'm still going to have the little holes in there. And then I've taken each flower and I'm just adding some double-sided foam tape between each layer, just to layer those up to give them a bit of height and dimension. And then I've just added a couple of sparkly gems into the middle of a couple of the flowers. So then I'm taking my card and I'm just going to spend a few minutes just sort of sorting out really where I want the flowers and the leaves to be positioned. And then when I'm happy with that, I'm going to stick them all in place. Then I've got a little tag die, so I'm just trimming that out of white card, running it through the machine. And then I've got the Dovecraft with Love Sentiment stamp, and I'm just going to stamp that up using VersaFine ink and add that onto that little tag shape. And then I just want to trim the end off, and I'm just going to put that in sort of like the top right hand corner of the card. So I'm just adding a couple of foam pads on the back there, and then sort of deciding where I wanted to put it. And then just on the trellis and sort of around the frame, I've added a couple of those little white die cut butterflies. And then just to finish off, I've got some little clear gems and some little pearl gems which I'm dotting about. And that's my final card. So thank you for joining me today. Hope you enjoyed my video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks very much. Bye.